come on, yeah. My name is Julie Madden. I am on staff here at St. John's, and it is a joy to welcome each and every one of you, wherever you are on your journey, to the journey of St. John's. So today we celebrate the Feast of the Epiphany. And in our sister parish meeting this past week, we were sharing stories of epiphanies in our lives. Encounters, not often monumental, but those moments when the sacred breaks in and that light illuminates our lives. Those times when we are challenged and changed by something that is unexpected, that forces us to see and be differently. So over the years, I've had the blessing of encounters and epiphanies with our SJA youth. And if you've been here for a while, you've had a chance to hear them, to witness them, and to be challenged and changed by them. Watching young people grow up here is an amazing journey. I would also remind you this morning, I was reading another piece about Epiphany that referred to it as a verb. So it said, don't forget, we have the power to epiph in our own lives. So not only are we the receptors of epiphanies, but it is our job to epiph for one another. And that is indeed what we will experience with our guest speaker here this morning. Katie Hardy has grown up here at St. John's. She and her mom are beloved members of this community, and I am so thrilled to be able to introduce you to her, to the story of her journey here at St. John's and in the world. Please welcome Katie Hardy.
Good morning. My name is Katie, and I've been a parishioner at St. John's all my life, like Julie just said. I graduated from St. Louis Park High School in 2019, and I will graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Madison this coming May with a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. Thank you. Thank you. In this season of Epiphany, I was asked to reflect on the journey I have made since I've left St. Joan, and while college is full of journeys, I've chosen to talk about my journey with nursing since I've entered college. Choosing to be a nurse was one of those decisions my body knew to make before my mind did. Now in my final year of nursing school, I know back then it wasn't just a gut feeling, it was my soul telling me what would be good for me. This story starts with me younger. And I was born in the lush green city of Suzhou, China, and I grew up in the busy, musical, and funky northeast neighborhood of Minneapolis in the US. I think a lot about who I could have been in other lives. In other universes, someone else from somewhere else adopted me. I stayed in China. My birth parents kept me. I lived with relatives in the countryside. I worked in a sweatshop. I became a famous dancer and lived in Beijing. Anything could have happened. I think about those possibilities, and I think about who I would have been, what God I would have believed in, what I would have accomplished, who I would know, who I would love. The truth is, I could have been anyone, which makes it easier for me to think I'm just like everyone I meet. And I could have lived anywhere, making everywhere feel like home. And because I could have followed any God, I feel like every God exists. Feeling this connected to others, to the earth, and to spirituality makes nursing make so much sense. And I've realized healing others has allowed me to give back to a world that gave to me, and it has brought me so much closer to God than I ever thought it would have. I did not figure this out until I actually started nursing school in my junior year of college, which was my first year of nursing school. Before this, faith had become something small, quiet, and personal in Madison. Our freshman year, my roommate, best friend, and fellow parishioner, Leah Terry, tried the traditional and conservative campus church with me. We soon found it wasn't for us. Obviously, from where we were coming from, St. Paul's, the church in Madison, never stood a chance. How could it when we grew up with two priests who cracked jokes on the pulpit, services that involved live theater, and talented musicians whose joyful and rowdy riffs during performances transforms mass into concerts? I actually blame St. John's for spoiling us so much because when Lee and I got there, we had no idea how to carry ourselves in a traditional Catholic church. Anyway, St. Paul's wasn't for us, and I felt lost because I didn't have a church. Religion became the walks I took outside, hearing live music, praying for a growing list of people every night. When junior year came around, I started meeting patients on my first clinical rotation, the trauma floor at UW Health. At this point, I needed a light to follow more than ever. On trauma, we had a lot of different cases: falls, car and motorcycle accidents, assault, gunshots, stabbing, crush injuries, and more. I saw people at the most stressful and vulnerable times in their lives, which made it all the more surprising when some of them opened up to me. One time I had a man who broke 6 bones and had his jaw wired shut. And when I went into his room to take his blood pressure, I lifted up his sleeve and I saw a large swastika on his right bicep. And the word hate was written in caps on his wrist. After getting his vitals and momentarily crying in the bathroom, I stuffed my fear down in my chest and went to work. I am happy to report that my first interaction with a Nazi was totally chill. And when I left that day, the poor man said through his surgically gritted teeth that I'd be a good nurse, and he thanked me. This short little Asian liberal girl, he thanked me, so it was really incredible. And I said, "You're welcome." And it was amazing. A week after that, I cared for a woman who tried to kill herself. And she had so much sorrow and anger in her heart, I could feel it from outside the room. She had bloody and tangled hair when I met her. Throughout the day, I helped bathe her. I washed her hair, then braided it and wrapped it in a crown with tied gauze since ponytails weren't allowed in her room. I've never been so close to someone who wanted death so much. I prayed to God after that shift to please protect her that night. One of my last weeks on trauma, I met an old woman who had fallen and broken her hip. I'm not sure who in the crowd has suffered a hip injury, but hip precautions in a hospital trap a patient in 1 or 2 positions. You can't bend over, you can't cross your ankles, you can't let your leg fall to a side, you're just stuck. The woman with the hip injury didn't like me at first, or at least I thought she didn't. My preconceived notions were telling me she just saw me as a dirty immigrant and didn't want me in the room to begin with. So for most of the morning, I kept my head down and helped her as quietly and minimally as I could. At some point in the afternoon, she asked me where I was from, and we soon got to talking, and I learned about her family, how much her faith meant to her childhood, the memories of her and her brothers running down hills in the summer and swimming in the creek. At one point, I told her I was adopted, and before I left for the day, she held my hands, looked at me in the eye, and said, "Pretend I'm your mother. I love you." And for a second, I felt my birth mother there, sitting across from me, telling me something I hadn't heard since I was with her as an infant. And I grasped that woman's hands. We said the Our Father together, and then I left. And it was at this point when I realized weekly clinical shifts had become church. The profession I had chosen was my backup church. Months went by, I got put on new units, I met new people, connected with them, loved them, and I found a new peace, a new light. I found that God is in the room of each patient in a hospital. A nurse is a holy individual. And the choice I made as a 12-year-old, the choice my soul made, was one for my family, for my biological parents, for this earth, for God, and for myself. One in thousands, I moved here, I got a loving family, I went to college, and not many who started where I did can say that. I love this profession because I get to pay the world back for all the blessings I've been given. Thank you for letting me share this with you today.